कई सारे ऐसे ऑप्शंस भी देख सकते हैं ETF में जो कि एक्टिव में एग्जिस्ट ही नहीं करते हैं या कितने लोग नहीं कर पाते हैं, राइट? दैट्स अ क्वेश्चन। लोगों को पता होना चाहिए कि वो क्या रिस्क आपके पोर्टफोलियो में लेकर के आ रहे हैं, क्या कॉस्ट आपके पोर्टफोलियो में लेकर के आ रहे हैं।
Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Shagun and today we have a very exciting video lined up for you. We have with us Siddharth Srivastav, Head of ETF Products and Fund Manager at Mirai Assets. He's also previously worked at NSE as a Senior Manager and at Morgan Stanley as a Senior Associate. We're so excited to have you with us, Siddharth.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Great. So, when we talk about ETFs, it's a relatively newer investment avenue as compared to mutual funds or traditional trading and etc. So, how would you explain the concept of ETFs to a 15-year-old, like someone who's just really new to the financial world? Like, how would you talk to them about it?
ETF is a type of passive investment जहाँ पे you can buy units just like stock. So mutual funds, you have to go and you can buy sell only based on day close NAV, right? But in case of ETF, you can buy based on intraday value. So for example, on 4th June, recently we had significant market volatility.
Yes.
Nifty fell down significantly. So if you wanted to buy at that price when market corrected, you can buy ETF at that value. But you can't do that with mutual funds, you can't do that with index funds. Also with ETF, आपके पास transparency है. You know what you're getting into. A Nifty 50 ETF will always track 50 companies which are part of Nifty 50 index. In a large cap mutual fund, it can be anything based on fund managers view.
Yeah.
Similarly, in a FANG plus ETF, you are tracking 10 US tech stocks. In Hang Seng Tech, you are tracking 30 Chinese companies, right? So there's transparency and it's a method driven approach. So it may sound sorts of boring and easy at times, but it's pretty effective, right? Ultimately, I think जो भी आपको return generate करे आपके लिए wealth create करे, whether it is active, passive, real estate, anything, all those things are beneficial for you and you should know about it.
Yeah. And you said that ETFs might seem easy to a lot of people, and I think that is one of the reasons why the AUM of ETFs in India has gone from somewhere around 7 crore in 2015 to now 6.69 lakh crore today. So, what do you think the trend is attributed to, in terms of retail investors? Like, what do you think is the reason behind it?
So, India में भी trend वही है जैसे ग्लोबली ETF का ट्रेंड स्टार्ट हुआ था. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, फर्स्ट यू स्टार्ट थिंकिंग अबाउट द फैक्ट कि मैं क्यों एक एक्टिव फंड को इतना ज़्यादा पैसा दूं फ्रॉम एन एक्सपेंस रेशियो पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू एंड एक एक्टिव फंड मैनेजर की रिस्क लूँ एंड चांसेस ऑफ अंडर परफॉर्मेंस लूँ, जबकि मैं एक सिंपल मार्केट कैप बेस्ड ETF में इन्वेस्ट कर सकता हूँ. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, a Nifty 50 ETF will give you returns जो कि एक Nifty 50 index देता है. Now a large cap fund manager will try to outperform Nifty 50 or a Nifty 100 index, right? But कितने लोग कर पाते हैं या कितने लोग नहीं कर पाते हैं, right? That's the question. चाहते तो हर कोई है, but actual में data क्या बोलता है? And as market becomes more and more efficient, you see underperformance of active fund managers rising. You also see the consistency of outperformance reducing. तो आज जो 20-30% large cap funds outperform let's say कर रहे हैं, क्या वही नाम एक साल बाद भी करेंगे? क्या वही नाम 3 साल बाद भी करेंगे? Because when you invest, you are investing in a particular fund and a fund manager style and how you invest, etc. So when markets become more efficient, we see that active funds become sorts of struggle to outperform, and we see popularity in these market cap driven ETFs like Nifty 50, Mid Cap 150, Nifty 500, etc. जैसे कि US में हम देखते हैं सबसे पॉपुलर क्या है, S&P 500 ETF. बट देन लोग रियलाइज़ करते हैं कि आप कई सारे ऐसे ऑप्शंस भी देख सकते हैं ETF में जो कि एक्टिव में एग्जिस्ट ही नहीं करते हैं. For example, gold ETF, silver ETF, right? For example, a FANG Plus ETF, S&P 500 Top 50 ETF. Now there are a lot of very unique products जो कि बहुत ही सिंपल तरीके से मोमेंटम स्ट्रैटेजी को टारगेट करते हैं, लो वॉल स्ट्रैटेजी को टारगेट करते हैं. देन यू कैन take exposure to themes like EV, which we recently launched.
Yes.
There was a defense-based fund which was recently launched. Then people start exploring. कि मैंने simple product को explore कर लिया. Then they graduate to exploring these unique offerings which can sit very well in their portfolio.
Right.
So people start focusing on building their core portfolio or main portfolio using ETFs, and then they graduate and start using all these unique offerings which can be used in their tactical portfolios, in their satellite portfolios. Short term call लेते हैं, long term investment कर सकते हैं. So ये सारा एक तरीके से investment journey people see in ETFs over a period of time.
Right. And you mentioned, from what I've understood is that ETFs are just a much more diversified avenue as compared to a lot of other avenues. That might be really enticing to a lot of retail investors, right? At some point of our conversation, you also talked about mutual funds, and I think for a lot of us, it's really confusing. The difference between mutual funds, index funds, and ETFs can really confuse a lot of people. So, can you just tell us about the fundamental differences between the three?
Sure. So I'll try to keep it simple. See, active mutual funds basically आपके फंड मैनेजर व्यू के बेसिस पे चलते हैं. नाउ देयर सेबी ने कैटेगराइजेशन डिफाइन करके रखी हुई है अबाउट लार्ज कैप फंड, मिड कैप फंड और फ्लेक्सी कैप, मल्टी कैप एक्सेट्रा. लेट्स टेक एग्जांपल ऑफ लार्ज कैप फंड. नाउ लार्ज कैप फंड में सेबी हैज डिफाइंड दैट 80% ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट शुड बी इन टॉप 100 स्टॉक्स, रिमेनिंग 20 कैन बी इन अदर स्टॉक्स ऑल्सो. बट ये स्टॉक्स क्या होंगे वो आपका फंड मैनेजर चूज करेगा, जो कि इस एक्टिव फंड का फंड मैनेजर है. Based on his view, he can go bullish on certain stocks, bullish on certain sectors. Now, this strategy can work or may not work. So, ये cycles भी आती हैं. Fund manager style आपके fund की performance को impact भी करते हैं. Now, all that is okay, right? I'm not saying that active mutual funds are bad. I also invest in active mutual funds, so they are good. But लोगों को पता होना चाहिए कि वो क्या रिस्क आपके पोर्टफोलियो में लेकर के आ रहे हैं, क्या कॉस्ट आपके पोर्टफोलियो में लेकर के आ रहे हैं. तो दिस इज एक्टिव मैनेजमेंट, दैट यू आर एक्टिवली मैनेजिंग द पोर्टफोलियो. देन कम्स पैसिव इन्वेस्टमेंट. नाउ पैसिव इन्वेस्टमेंट इज ऑल अबाउट कि मैं एक इंडेक्स को ही ट्रैक करूँगा. इसमें क्या होता है पैसिव में कि जो इंडेक्स के स्टॉक्स हैं और जिस प्रपोर्शन में वो स्टॉक्स प्रेजेंट है इंडेक्स में, इन्वेस्टमेंट वैसे ही होता है. अगर आपका HDFC Bank is 12% in Nifty 50 for example, then a Nifty 50 ETF will buy only 12% of HDFC.
Okay.
And it will buy all 50 stocks in same proportion. The idea is to give client return equivalent to what Nifty 50 index is giving, right? कुछ overweight call नहीं, कुछ underweight call.
So it's a replication of sorts.
It's a replication. Now within passive investments, there are two types. One is index funds and one is ETF. Now दोनों ही इंडेक्स को ट्रैक करते हैं. The difference is how you can buy and sell. So index fund works like a normal mutual fund. You buy and sell at a day close NAV, right? ETFs gets listed on stock exchange and you can buy and sell one unit like you do for a stock. For a stock you can buy HDFC Bank का एक शेयर. Hence, similarly, you can buy Nifty 50 ETF का एक यूनिट. And like in case of HDFC Bank, दिन में वो 1% अप रहेगा, डाउन रहेगा, जैसे भी रहेगा आप उस प्राइस पे खरीद सकते हो. वैसे आप Nifty 50 यूनिट्स भी, ETF की यूनिट्स भी इंट्राडे वैल्यू पे खरीद सकते हैं, विच ऑप्शन यू डोंट हैव in case of active mutual funds also and in case of index fund also. So that's the basic difference. Baki I think becomes similar. For passive, since it tracks a index, it is transparent, it is method driven, and more importantly, why it became popular globally is because it has lower cost. On an average, Nifty 50 ETF की cost is around 0.05%.
Yeah.
Right, and अगर आप इसी को large cap fund से compare करेंगे, it can be roughly around 80 basis point to 100 basis point. So यहाँ पे ही because costing में difference है, that also add to your return. That differential in cost also is something which helps people outperform and deliver sorts of reasonable return for their core portfolio.
Right, absolutely. And so our team has been tracking inflows into mutual funds for the past year, and we noticed that majority of the funds, almost 40%, are going towards thematic or perhaps sectoral ETFs. So what do you think, like what would that, why would that be? Like what could be the possible reasons behind this trend?
See, अगर मैं in terms of market share की बात करूं, so still you will see from market share point of view, majority of investment is in Nifty 50 and Sensex ETF, right? And that's the trend globally also. US maybe maximum allocation is in S&P 500, Nasdaq 100, same in Europe, etc. Because core portfolio is where you make maximum allocation, right? And because of cost advantage, which we discussed, it makes a lot of sense to take exposure in a Nifty 50 ETF, right? Versus a large cap active fund. But why we are seeing a lot of inflows in themes and sectors and strategies is because ये सारे products ना आपके passive ही available है, right? In a very rule based manner, in a very focused manner. Is there a low volatility based product available on the active side? Answer is no. Is there a alpha based or a momentum based product available on the active side? Answer is no. There are a lot of sorts of sector based products which are only available on the passive side or not on the active side. And also at times, for example, let's say tomorrow monetary policy is going to come and I have to take a view on banking stocks and say I have to take a bullish view. So today, instead of looking for a BFSI based active fund, I'll simply go and buy a bank ETF. Right? If I want to take view on private bank only, I can go ahead and buy a private banking ETF. Those options are not there on the active side, right? So there is a lot of sorts of spread which is available on the passive side now, and that is why, because you are seeing that these options only exist on the passive side. So conversation has evolved. पहले जब मैं बात करता था, it was always about active versus passive. कि passive इसलिए करना चाहिए because active underperform कर रहा है. But actually conversation has evolved now. कि passive इसलिए करना चाहिए क्योंकि option ही सिर्फ passive में है.
So that throughout the conversation, you mentioned the word alpha. And a major chunk of our audience, are people who are just beginners when it comes to finance. So we have a small activity for you. We have 4 terms, and we want you to give us a small explanation on those in 50 seconds. Wow, so we have Aman here, and he's going to be timing you. So you have to be really conscious of the time. Okay. So 4 words, very short. The first word that we have is factor ETFs.
Okay. So factor ETF is basically products which try to target a certain behavior. Now थोड़ा complicated लगता है, but it's pretty easy. There's a momentum, it's a factor. Low volatility, which says कि जो stocks more stable है, is a factor. High dividend is a factor. Value is a factor. Growth is a factor. Quality is a factor. So factor-based ETFs are ETFs which target these behaviors. So a low volatility based ETF will only capture stocks which are more stable and has more sorts of stable stock prices.
The second term is smart beta products.
So smart beta products is like a marketing name for factor ETFs. So यहाँ पे stocks का selection भी basically जिस behavior को आप target कर रहे हैं उसके basis पे होता है, and साथ में weighing भी उसके ऊपर dependent होती है. For example, in an alpha based ETF आप उन स्टॉक्स का सिलेक्शन कर रहे हैं जो कि अच्छा परफॉर्म कर रहे हैं, बट वेइंग भी जब आप कर रहे हैं तो उस बेसिस पे कर रहे हैं कि जिसका परफॉर्मेंस बेटर है उसको वेट ज़्यादा मिले. सो दीज आर स्मार्ट बीटा ETFs.
Got it. The third term we have is fund of funds, which was very confusing to me.
So funds of funds are basically schemes जो कि अदर फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट करती है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल अ गोल्ड फंड ऑफ फंड इज अ स्कीम जो कि गोल्ड ETF में इन्वेस्ट करती है. वी हैव a FANG fund of fund जो कि FANG ETF में इन्वेस्ट करती है. So these are schemes which are investing in other schemes. This can be a single scheme or in some cases multiple schemes.
Got it. And the last word, because you've mentioned this word a lot of times, what is an alpha?
So alpha investing is also known as momentum investing, जहाँ पे आप उन stocks को select करते हैं अपने portfolio में which are done well recently. So you don't look at fundamentals, you're not looking at anything else apart from recent risk adjusted performance or recent alpha or outperformance which they have generated over the underlying benchmark. So इन stocks को आप select करेंगे, इसका portfolio बनाएंगे. This is a high return, high risk strategy.
Got it. So I'm hoping that our audience has a better understanding of these terms, and thank you for that very brief explanation. Now, let's come back to ETFs. So I know a lot of investors who want to invest in foreign markets, say USA or China. And I was going through Mirai Assets, so I saw that there are options available for them. So could you talk to us about how ETFs could be a good proposition for people who want to invest in foreign markets?
Correct. So see, we have multiple foreign-based products. Some are ETFs and some are fund of funds. See, why ETFs are good and why passive products are good is because ये आपको एक बहुत ही focused, transparent और known exposure देती है. जैसे FANG ETF है, it will invest in 10 tech stocks, right? And people know their name. S&P 500 top 50 ETF है, वो 50 largest US companies में invest करेगा, the mega caps. Hang Seng Tech ETF है, वो 30 Chinese tech company में invest करेगा. We have a global artificial intelligence fund of fund which does not invest in companies directly but invest in ETF, which is basically taking exposure to such companies. And then we have a global EV fund of fund also, which invests in 3 ETFs, which are tracking lithium and battery tech companies, Chinese EV companies, and a global EV companies in the entire ecosystem. So ये सारे options present हैं. यहाँ पे investor को थोड़ा सा ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा because these are wealth creating options also, but they come with their own risk.
Right.
Also, for example, performance of a China-centric fund, whether active or passive, will depend on how well Chinese market are doing and how well Chinese economy is doing, right? Which is not good recently, and hence the underperformance. On the contrary, US, especially the FANG plus S&P 500 top 50 have done really well because the underlying companies are doing well and the economy is also doing well. So the behavior can be very different from Indian markets. So काफ़ी अच्छी interesting options है because see, market, we are living in a global setup, right? And अगर मैं जब FANG companies की बात करता हूँ, lot of people are using almost all the products associated. So you are trying to explore opportunities जो कि इंडिया में available ही नहीं है. Either from a company level point of view or a theme point of view. So that is why you're seeing a lot of interest. And I think people can invest via ETFs, index funds, fund of funds which are based on ETFs. These are passive routes in a very sorts of focused, transparent, low cost manner. And they can explore active mutual funds also, which are sorts of investing in offshore securities.
So I think that's a really great way for just even beginner retail investors who want that exposure to foreign markets. So ETFs is just a much more, I'd say, not a risk-free, but a relatively safer way for them to expose themselves to those markets, right?
See, passive investment आपके market risk को नहीं हटाता है. The only risk which it removes is the active fund manager risk. A bank ETF will have similar risk, which, let's say, from a market point of view, which a banking companies, banking sector and BFSI active fund will have. Just that वो एक index को track कर रहा है and fund manager view based नहीं है. Similarly, a FANG ETF will have its own set of risks, which is US market risk, underlying company risk, tech sector risk, you'll have a risk of currency appreciation, depreciation also. So all those things will come into play. थोड़ा complicated लग रहा है, but I think it is very essential to understand the risk also of a particular product while trying to understand the return potential.
Right, absolutely. And we were just talking about thematic stocks, and you mentioned the global electric vehicles ETF, right? So I just like to understand what was the philosophy behind it, and do you, being a fund manager, do you see growth potential? Because of course, as an industry, there's a lot. But from an investor's point of view, do you see growth potential in the EV space?
Yeah. So see, at Mirai, thankfully, I'm allowed to sort of explore a lot of opportunities from a thematic investment point of view, from factor investing point of view, bring innovative products to the Indian investors, and we felt that something like artificial intelligence, electric vehicles, etc., are themes which are long-term themes, right? And we felt that this is one place where Indian investors can take exposure from a long-term point of view. So when we assessed that theme, we saw that it has an entire ecosystem. For example, there are companies which mine lithium. There are companies which produce underlying chemicals for batteries. There are companies then which manufacture batteries. Then there are auto component providers, and then there are tech providers, right? You have cars which so much technology right now, right? So we realize that's a good sorts of theme to sorts of introduce in India. It hasn't done well recently because Chinese market has struggled in terms of demand also, and obviously US market also because of inflation has struggled to generate demand which we thought will be there consistently. I think this is थोड़ा सा hiccup इस time पे, it will sort of regain the momentum which we think will be there in this theme and will lead to a better fund performance in future. We think about a theme which will work for a long-term point of view. We see whether this is a right time to enter that theme and whether that theme is sorts of a long-term trend, is scalable, and if that's the case, we sorts of will never hesitate in terms of bringing offshore opportunities in Indian markets. That is what we did with FANG.
Right.
That is what we did with AI-based fund of fund also.
Correct. And so from what I've understood is that just the EV investment avenue, for example, the EV ETF that we're talking about, it does not only depend on manufacturers, and there are a lot of other parties that are at play here. And just from a retail investor's point of view, sometimes we don't see that because all we see is Tesla. So all we see is manufacturers. So it's a great insight that there are so many other factors that play into the performance of a particular ETF.
Absolutely.
Other than just the manufacturer or the one who's facing a lot of consumers. So that's a great insight. Another really interesting trend that we noticed was that more and more people are putting money into the stock markets and trading as opposed to keeping it and holding it in their banks. And I think for a country like India, where saving is something that we're taught, from the day we're born, that's a really interesting trend. So I would just like to understand your perspective and just, what do you think about this change and what it would imply for the entire investing industry in the near future?
I think, COVID has sorts of changed the world completely, right?
Absolutely.
It has helped the MF industry also in terms of penetration, in terms of more folios, etc. It has certainly helped ETFs, index funds, and it has obviously completely sorts of given a huge momentum to these broking accounts, trading, F&O trading, etc. I think anything done in a measured manner, when an investor is aware about his objectives, overall portfolio and risk, and consciously investing by thinking all about it, all over that, I think that's okay. If a person is investing in crypto, that's not bad. If more important is that उसके overall corpus में से वो कितना invest कर रहा है, right? Can he take that drawdown which is associated with crypto? Same with F&O, same with stocks. So अगर आप sort of in a very disciplined manner invest कर रहे हैं, you are aware about the risk you are taking, you are okay with the drawdowns, you are aware about your overall portfolio, etc. So I think this should be sorts of encouraged. This learning which we are seeing, which especially people are so enthusiastic right now to explore different financial avenues. They should be educated, and I think they should be educated in a manner to obviously manage their portfolio from both wealth creation point of view and risk management point of view.
Correct. Right. And you know, while we're on the topic, the budget, of course, it's been all over the news, and a lot of taxation laws have changed. So, do you think that that's a deterrent for retail investors when it comes to investing?
See, to be honest, if you see how this government has introduced taxation in several aspects over a period of time, I think to an extent this was expected,
Right.
right? Especially on the FNO side, to an extent on the short-term capital gains and long-term capital gains also. It was not something which was completely out of the box. I think this sorts of may temporary on a temporary basis raise concern, but I think apart from that, I think from a long-term point of view, and even probably a week down the line, people will not, I think, so much focus on the taxation part. Yeah, especially when Indian markets are doing so well.
Yeah.
So yes, from a retail point of view, from an investor point of view, it's not a sweet pill to swallow that taxation has been increased, but I think थोड़ा बहुत expectation थी, at least हम लोग को तो थी, and अगर देखा जाए तो people will keep on investing in stocks, in MF, in FNO, and all this thing they will obviously ignore after initial discussion.
I think the returns always draw people back.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
So that's great. Okay, so we also saw that there is a new and upcoming ETF titled Mirai Asset Nifty 200 Alpha 30 ETF and FOF. So that's a very long name, right? So can you tell us a little bit about it, and how is it different from other Mirai products? What's new about it? What's exciting about it?
So this product, we have already launched ETF, and we are now launching fund of fund. So this product will take exposure in 30 companies which have generated alpha, or in a simpler manner, outperformance over the underlying market in last 1 year. The idea is to basically capture the trends. Idea is to invest in stocks which are doing well recently, and typically we have seen that this sort of strategy works really well in an uptrending market, because if you are reviewing frequently and this product gets reviewed on a quarterly basis, you are able to capture stocks and sectors and market cap segments which are performing better. And if we look historically, this strategy has done really well. It has delivered significantly better returns than the underlying benchmark. It has high churn because stock changes frequently and in a good number, because alpha investment karni hai, to you have to do frequent reviews and remove stocks which are not doing well. The market cap representation changes. Sometimes it is large cap tilted, sometimes it is mid cap tilted, because the universe is Nifty 200, which is 100 large cap and 100 mid cap stocks, जिसमें selection होता है. And also sectoral representation also changes. In 2020, it was tilted towards healthcare when it was doing well. In 2021, it was tilted towards IT, which was doing well. Right now, it is tilted towards capital goods and financial services, especially the PSU ones. So it is something which adopts.
Great.
It is something which targets higher return generation, but it has higher volatility also. During, let's say, events like 4th June, it may show you a higher fall. So someone who invests in momentum or alpha should be aware about the fact that in some periods it can have a higher volatility and higher drawdown. तो अगर आप alpha based product में जो हमने launch किया उसमें invest करना है, तो you should have a higher risk profile and probably stay invested for at least 2-3 periods जब market अच्छा कर रहा है. So from a current scenario, I think at least 4 से 5 साल का होराइजन लेकर के आना चाहिए. क्या होता है मार्केट अभी अच्छा कर जाए और आपको रिटर्न बना करके दे दे, बट आपका इंटेंट 4 से 5 साल का एटलीस्ट होना चाहिए.
Right. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you drop a like and subscribe for more.
Investment in the securities market is subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.